Alright, so this is going to be a guide on how I recommend setting up user interface and reasons why I think this is a really good way to set it up. So you see I've pulled everything in a little bit closer to my character, and this just shows the effect of that. The red circle around the character as melee is where your eyes are focused on most of the time, since you're watching the person that you're meleeing, seeing where they're moving and when they're going to stop moving to cast and stuff like that. So pulling in your target frame, your self frame, your focus frame, arena frame, and party member frames closer to your character makes it much easier to see in your peripheral vision while you're focusing on the person who you are meleeing. This is an old screenshot, so you see I have party frames there, but now I use raid frames instead to save some macro space, mainly for the party frame positions. So this just shows where the default positions normally are, which you probably know. So this just makes it easier to see how much less efficient it is to have your stuff in the default position. So imagine your eye movements while in a game. Normally they're centered around your character as much as you have time for, so that you can watch the person you're meleeing, how they're moving and stuff. And when you glance down to like your bars or to the top left for the default positions, so if you're going from like bottom right to top left, usually it's like a glance bottom right, and then you look back at the center, and then you glance top left. So you can just imagine these colors are like eye movements, so like you can be following the yellow down to your bars, and then following the yellow back up to the middle, and then to check your cooldown on your bars, and then having to check your target frame, your buffs or something, the orange going up to the top, and then coming back down to the middle before checking your arena frames, the green to the right, and then coming back to the middle, and then checking down at the bars again, but on the left side, the blue, and then going back up, and then say you have to check the arena frame again, and then you go back to the middle, and then you check your party members on the left, the brown there. So you can see all the extra distance that you have to cover going past where I have my stuff already. And you have to cover that distance twice, because you go that extra distance there, and then you go the extra distance on your way back. In a long arena match, all those extra distances that you're having to cover with your eyes are going to add up, and it's more tedious, actually, and then of course it just takes a little bit longer time. But most importantly is how much more it takes your eyes away from the center of the screen or from whatever else you're wanting to look at. For example, if you are glancing down at your bars for your cooldowns, the buffs of your target frame are nowhere near your bars if they're in the default position. They're on the complete opposite side of the screen, from top to bottom. So you don't have any chance of seeing any of that out of your peripheral vision, really, or being able to glance at it easily without not being able to glance at your bars easily, because you have to go from one extreme to the other. And then same thing with your like arena frame and your party members frames, or your arena frame and yourself and your target frames. So pulling it all in like that just increases your chance to not miss things that are happening in the center field while you're looking at something else other than the center field. Because of it being closer to the center field, it's easier to stay fixed at the center and see everything just by glancing a little bit. And now for why my focus frame, I have it there grouped up with my arena frame, because when you're watching your focus frame, you're watching for casts usually, or buffs, and so having your arena frame attached to your focus frame like that just groups the reason why you're looking in that area, which is for casts. So you might be watching your focus for the casts, and he might not cast, and you might see a different person that's not your focus casting on the arena frame instead. So it just increases your chance of seeing something else which you were not originally looking for. And then similarly, having your party frames next to your self frame, you're looking at both of those to see your health bars, or your party frame to see some buffs, and your target frame in the same general area to see their buffs. Here, the small red circles on the target frame and the focus frame show where the target of target frame normally is, and you can see I move it down and to the right a little bit. That's because when somebody has a lot of debuffs, one debuff slot is right there at the circle, and the target of target frame actually covers it. So I'll include in the description the macro to move that. So sometimes it could be a buff that you want to be watching for how long it has on it, like kidney shot or something like that, and it could be blocking the way, or any number of other important things, so that can be pretty helpful there. And then to the bars, you can see I have my bottom left bar and main bar doubled. Everything is the same when I stealth and when I dance also. That just makes it a little bit easier to see, but it's a big hassle to set it up like that. What you have to do is you have to take abilities which don't have a cooldown and make them show an icon that do have a cooldown. And then the reason I have two smoke bombs is because the one on the left is just a placeholder for where the racial goes. If I were like Night Elf or something else, that's where Meld would go. I don't put my human racial there because the human racial is my trinket icon, since I'm more used to looking at the trinket icon, and because I want that position to be the same position for trinkets if I'm human or any other race. And then redirect and kidney shot should be side by side, because when you're glancing down for your redirect key, you also need to see your kidney shot key. And same thing when you're looking at your kidney shots, it's nice to be able to see if your redirect is coming up soon, if it's coming up soon enough for you to hold your 5 combo points for a few more seconds, 5 seconds even maybe, or if you can see the cooldown on your redirect is going to be like one more kidney shot cooldown left, so you'll know that when your kidney shot's up the next time that your redirect is up, and you can be ready for it a little bit earlier like that. I used to actually have my redirect and kidney shot at the beginning further apart because of an order that I was following with how I have my cooldowns displayed, which I'll get into a little bit later. And I just noticed that glancing down, having to glance left and then glance right for redirect and kidney shot was really annoying, so I fixed that like right away. Now, boxed in red, all of those cooldowns are under 1 minute. I have it from shortest on the right to longer on the left. So stealth is a shorter cooldown than kick, and kick shorter than gouge, then kidney, and then redirect is out of order, but that's because redirect should be next to kidney, like I was talking about before. But then it goes back in order, and then after step, everything is 1 minute cooldown until vanish. So that's why I have it doubled like that, because all my shorter cooldowns, it just makes them stand out a little bit easier to see. And then vanish is 2 minutes, and then it goes over to the bottom right bar after that, with blind and combat readiness and smoke bomb increasing in cooldown, except combat readiness is actually shorter, but I think they used to be the same until the patch put combat readiness and cloak on a shared CD, and they reduced combat readiness, so now it's out of order, but I'm used to having blind there. It stands out a little more being the first one on the bar, on the bottom right bar, so I'm just left it like that. And actually stealth is kind of a waste of that spot for having a cooldown doubled like that. because you don't really need to watch the stealth cooldown at all, since it takes 6 seconds to get out of combat and it's a 6-second cooldown, and you're not going to be staring at that while you're in the middle of a fight. So I could move that off to the side on the right bar and then add something else like blind into the double bar there. That could be more helpful, but it's not really going to make a difference, and I'm used to it like this, so I'm just keeping it like that. And then if I'm using 2 on-use trinkets, I actually just change my poison macro to show the tooltip of the second trinket, because I have no more room without enabling the sidebar, which I don't want to do just because I don't like looking over there. I like to keep it on the bottom there if I can fit it all in. It's just a little bit nicer looking. Also, my arena frames are scaled up a little bit bigger to make the cast bars stand out a little more. I'll include that macro in the description section, and the coordinates for my arena frame and the coordinates for my party and target frames. But I'm not sure if it's going to line up if we use a different UI scale or a different resolution. This is an easy way to set up the location that I have my focus frame at. It's roughly equal distance away from my character's body as my target frame is, and it's the same height as my target frame. So if you are zoomed out all the way, for me that's I think 20 presses of zoom out, or 20 notches of scrolling to zoom out. And make sure you're not looking like into the ground or anything, so that your camera is actually fully out. And you just make your chat log, you type something and say, so that the chat bubble has to go to a second line, and then the bottom of the chat bubble lines up with in between the energy and health bar of the focus frame and the edge, the right edge of the chat bubble there. And then in 5v5, the arena frame is going to have 2 more people in it, so that's going to go on top of the focus frame. So I just moved the focus frame down a little bit, so it's below the arena frame again. But you'll have to move the target of target frame again, because once you move its position, it no longer moves with the frame, because it's not anchored to it anymore. So you're gonna have to redo that position on that, but that's pretty easy to do. You just hover over it, press the macro, and then drag it. And then class color nameplates are absolutely amazing. I can't believe people actually play without it sometimes, or all the time. They increase your situational awareness so much, because you can just like jump and do a 180 and see where a nameplate is and the color of it, and identify really easily where it is, and they stand out a lot, no matter the background or spell effects. They're really easy to see the direction that a character is moving just by turning and glancing and seeing the direction that their nameplate is going. And then of course line of sighting is the #1 reason. If you want to perfectly line of sight somebody, you need to be able to see the frames through the pillars. And then of course the attached cast bars to the frame help for if you don't want to stare at your focus frame, or if it's a person casting that's your non-focus or your non-target. As for the raid frame sizing, I make them pretty big so that the buffs and debuff icons are easier to see, but I don't have them as big as possible, because after a certain point the icons don't really get much easier to see or bigger, and actually sometimes 1 notch smaller on a horizontal or vertical sizing for some reason makes the icons a little bit easier to see. It just depends on how they're kind of displayed. Sometimes it looks like they have like a border, sort of like on the action bars, how the on the main bar there's like a little border around it, and sometimes going down 1 notch gets rid of that border and actually makes the icon basically the same size but without a little bit on the edge getting covered. And then I'd probably recommend using sticky targeting. I actually never have turned it on just because I've never really had a problem with accidentally detargeting anything. So I don't know, I should probably turn it on just in case. Like, I'm trying to click target a pet because I can't tab target pets because I have my tab to target enemy players, and if you miss the pet, then you untarget the person. And if for some reason they start casting or something and you want to like shadow step kick them, then you're gonna have to reacquire the target. And then you're also going to want stop auto attack enabled in combat, which will stop auto attacking when you switch targets in case you tab to somebody that you're about to swap to and your teammate polys them or puts them in some kind of CC right then you don't have to worry about accidentally auto attacking them out of the CC. And anyways, I have auto attack macroed into every like offensive ability that it won't mess anything up with. And then actually recently I played a game and accidentally had party chat bubbles enabled, and somebody had a add-on that spammed in party when somebody used a trinket or something, and it was actually really annoying having the party chat bubble come up in the match, because when I was meleeing somebody, the chat bubble would actually be like on top of that person and it'd be hard to see them. So I would remove that if anybody says anything in party while you're doing arenas for whatever reason. And then for the scrolling combat text or floating combat text, I have it scroll down because when it scrolls up, it goes over your character more than scrolling down does, and it goes over your target also when you're standing in melee range of them, so it kind of blocks your view more when it's scrolling up. And then in the combat settings, you should use cast action keybind on key down, and it makes things a little bit faster. And then just under the options menu in network, optimize network for speed says it makes things a little bit faster. I haven't tested it a lot with on and off. I used to play with it off, but I put it on. I think I can notice the difference a little bit, maybe. So, I mean, if there is a small difference, even if you can't notice it, it's still worth having selected, unless it's making you lag or whatever. And then sound, you should have sound enabled, and if you can, have enable use hardware. Select use hardware if you have good headphones, so that you can hear the direction of the sound better. Sound is way underrated. For example, you usually don't have melee on your focus a lot, but you can hear shadow dance, the sound of it. So if a rogue shadow dances on your teammate and he's close to you, you can hear it. You can swap your focus real fast to the rogue and focus dismantle the shadow dance. Or you can hear preparation, which has no visual effect. You can hear cold snap, which has no visual effect. Or also, just while you're looking for something else and you're not able to see something happening, you might be able to hear it even when it has a visual effect that's really easy to see, but you might not be looking. You might be looking in a different area and miss it, but you'll still catch it if you have sound on. Or if you're running cleave and your teammate gets dismantled, dismantle has a distinctive sound, you can hear it before he even calls out that he's dismantled. You'll know that he's dismantled or disarmed. So maybe that can save you in a situation where you're about to use dance and your teammate gets dismantled and you hear it, and if he didn't call it as fast as you heard it, if he was a second late calling it over Skype, you may have hit dance and then have your dance get kind of wasted because of that.